It's Hard to Believe, the podcast that brings you absolutely true but very hard to believe stories. I'm your host, G-Wiz. Now let's get into it. Balloonatics. Have you ever gazed longingly at a large bunch of colorful helium balloons and wondered what it would be like to be carried away, kind of Curious George style? Well, it's hard to believe, but several people have actually tried to find out, and with mixed results. The first notable person became known as Lawn Chair Larry. It was July of 1982. Larry Walters of San Pedro, California. He was frustrated at being rejected as a pilot by the U.S. Air Force because of his poor eyesight. So Larry purchased 45 8-foot weather balloons by forging a requisition and claiming that they'll be used for a television commercial. Otherwise, they wouldn't sell it to him. He filled 43 of the balloons with helium and attached them to a lawn chair that he calls the Inspiration 1. Larry puts on a parachute, straps himself in, and as he sits in his backyard, he double checks to make sure he's got everything he needs. His pellet gun, a CB radio, a camera, sandwiches, and why not, some beer. His plan is to float over the Mojave Desert and then use the pellet gun to burst some balloons in order to descend. What could possibly go wrong? Larry tied his balloon chair to his Jeep, and when he's ready, he'll give the signal for the rope to be released. However, the rope broke and sent Larry shooting up into the sky before he could notify authorities of his intentions. The lawn chair quickly reached 16,000 feet. 2 commercial airliners spotted him and alerted ground control. Now, instead of drifting towards his intended destination, which was the Mojave Desert, Larry slowly drifted over Long Beach and was headed directly towards the primary approach corridor of the Long Beach airport. Larry did make contact with authorities on the ground using the CB radio, and 45 minutes into the flight, Larry began shooting at the balloons to begin his descent. And that's when he accidentally dropped the pellet gun. Nevertheless, he still slowly descended right into a power line, which he broke and caused a 20-minute power outage. Eventually, he hit the ground and he emerged unharmed. Larry was immediately arrested. His homemade balloon chair that he called the Inspiration did just that, and in the years that followed, many other would-be pilots looked to helium balloons to try to escape to the heavens. The first copycat was Kent Couch of Oregon in 2007. He also took a lawn chair, not a couch, and tied more than 100 helium balloons to it. His safety gear included sunglasses, a radio, and a parachute that he didn't wear, but he kept it beside him. Just in case, I guess. He had an elaborate system to control his height. It was 200 pounds of water in jugs. Now, I don't know if he just dropped them on people and the objects below, or he just poured them out, but it seems to me water in jugs can only help you go up, not down. Anyway, he took off from a gas station in Bend, Oregon. He quickly reached 13,000 feet, and he floated eastward. He traveled 200 miles in 9 hours, about 22 miles an hour, which was far, far short of his intended destination in Idaho. Other than some turbulence, though, Kent described the journey as serene. He also said it was very, very expensive. Not all party balloon rides go as smoothly as Kent's. A year later, in April of 2008, with God as his co-pilot, Father Adelir Antonio de Carli, a Brazilian priest, tied himself to 1,000 helium-filled balloons to raise money to build a rest stop for truckers. His safety equipment included a helmet, a parachute, a GPS tracker, a radio, an aluminum thermal flight suit, water, cereal bars, energy caplets, and waterproof coveralls. His goal was to break the world's record of 19 hours for the longest time in the air via party balloons. We'll never know if he broke the record because 8 hours and 55 miles after lifting off, he went missing. It turns out he did not know how to use the GPS. 2 days later, his balloons were spotted floating in the ocean near his last known position. His body wouldn't be found for more than 2 months later by tugboat workers. 3 years earlier, Father de Carli had been expelled from a flight school because he was, quote, undisciplined, and an exhibitionist. DeCarli's flight instructor also said he was always bragging about his faith and how his faith was going to carry him and take him safely through his journey. Perhaps the highly unusual fog that blanketed the area and turned the visibility to zero the day of the launch was his co-pilot's way of saying, let's find another way to raise this money. Other more successful imitators include Jonathan Trapp, who flew over the English Channel in January of 2010, Daniel Boria, who flew over Canada as an advertising stunt in July of 2015. He got arrested. A Dubai ad in 2016, which also featured a man in a lawn chair tied to hundreds of helium balloons. David Blaine grabbed onto a bunch of helium balloons and flew over the Arizona desert in 2020 as a stunt. In South Africa, Tom Morgan used 100 balloons in July of 2023. And in India, in April of 2022, a bride entered her wedding by floating in on helium balloons. Yes, hard to believe. It's not always helium, though. This story from China is nuts. Pine nuts, to be exact. In September of 2022, a man who tied himself to a hydrogen-filled weather balloon to pick pine nuts accidentally came untethered and got carried away for 2 days. He was able to land after rescuers reached him on his cell phone and walked him through slowly deflating the balloon. Can you hear me now? If you want to try flying ridiculously high while tied to a balloon for yourself, good news! A Japanese company offers helium balloon tours of space at the low price of just $164,000. That's almost half the price of a Titanic submarine tour. On a side note, Mylar balloons, those silver ones you buy for birthday parties, they cause thousands of power outages every year as they get entangled in power lines. It's hard to believe that helium balloons are still legal. You can find links and more information about this topic and our complete library at our website, hardtobelieve.blog. Thank you for listening. This has been Hard to Believe. I'm your host, G Wiz, asking you to please like and subscribe for exclusive content.